So the chapter starts off with Hawks talking to Izuku in like a flashback, and he says All for One and Shigaraki have yet to reach the stage where they can steal One for All by force. Not only that, but without Dr. Garaki, they shouldn't have a way to preserve a dead body, so capturing you alive must be the villain's best bet, which for most Tartarus escapees would be impossible, but if that woman is involved, it's a different story. So that woman he's referring to here is the sniper from the end of the chapter, the female villain that we've all been intrigued by who broke out of Tartarus. She's getting fully revealed and explained in this chapter, so it turns out her name is Lady Nagant, but not only that, but she was Hawks' former senpai back in the Public Safety Commission. She's actually referred to as a former public safety hero. So she was pretty much doing the same thing as Hawks, I guess. This is pretty interesting because I think besides Hawks, this is the only other public safety hero that we've been introduced to. Before this, the Public Safety Commission was just mainly like the higher ups and the suits. We didn't really get to see any other heroes like Hawks. But going further, he says, however, if you find yourself engaged with her in a fight, please do everything you can to run away. So aside from her getting introduced in this chapter, she's very heavily hyped as well. I mean, they're really establishing her as like one of the top villains in this chapter, and it's understandable because she is pretty powerful, at least from what we've seen here. So in the previous chapter, she told Izuku not to move, but he does anyway, so then she fires at him again, but he's able to get away from it, and he's like swinging around the city like Spider-Man, and he says, my secret transmission device was destroyed. You know, he wanted to contact Hawks and All Might, but he can't do that now. And then he says there's a chance they'll target where I'm heading. For now, I'll just do as I was told and retreat. But as he's getting away, we see that she's sent a bullet at him that can like curve, kind of like from that movie Wanted. And it seems like at the last second, Izuku's able to grab the bullet to stop it from like completely piercing him. Then we randomly cut to like Snipe, a hero we haven't seen in a very long time, on like this TV show or something. And I guess this is like a memory that Izuku had watching this show as a kid or something maybe. And this is literally just Snipe delivering exposition on Lady Nagant, as well as hyping her up further, where he says like if it wasn't for her, he'd be the best long distance sniper in Japan, and that the range of her quirk is 3 kilometers, which is like almost 2 miles. And then he explains how her bullets work, saying that she mixes and molds her 2-colored hair like epoxy putty before hardening it into a bullet. She can make anything from hollow points to bullets that also curve. And the name of her quirk is Rifle. So then we come back to like Izuku falling, and he says, if it wasn't for the 4th, I would have been defeated a long time ago, referring to the 4th's quirk, Danger Sense, which allowed him to, you know, stop the bullet at the last second. And then he says, but with that shot along with the first one, I figured out where she is, about 1 kilometer ahead. Her range is 3 kilometers. Rather than enduring this barrage while escaping from her range, I'll get closer. And then we see him charging at her, but a piece of like his gauntlet was broken from taking one of those bullets. The new gauntlets from America that he received a couple chapters back. And then Lady Nagant says this is the first time someone has deflected 2 of my bullets, so further hyping her up, but also giving Izuku some props too. Then we cut over to Overhaul, who is revealed to just be there randomly with her at the end of the previous chapter. And he starts talking, and he says, I want to go back to the old man now. And Lady Nagant's like, yeah, as soon as we're done here, go hide, the target is coming, and maybe I should have left you behind. Then we cut back to the Tartarus prison break from chapter 297, and we're seeing what we didn't get to see before, and it's Lady Nagant talking to All for One. Then All for One says, the traitor hero, the beautiful Lady Nagant, it's an honor to meet you. I consider you to be leagues above everyone else. Please, I have a favor to ask you. Soon enough, there will most likely be a boy who leaves UA and starts acting independently. I want you to capture him and bring him back to me. So yeah, All for One somehow knew that all of this was going to happen. I mean, it's not really surprising. I mean, he's like a genius. He's lived for, you know, over 100 years at this point. Then Lady Nagant is like hesitant to accept his offer, and he further says, you've slaughtered many of your fellow heroes. The fall of the pro-hero society that you wish for will never arrive as long as this boy lives. And then I guess that was enough to convince her to join All for One and do what he wants. Also giving us insight into, I guess, why Lady Nagant was in Tartarus in the first place and why she's referred to as the hero traitor. Because apparently she's slaughtered many of her fellow heroes, and her wish is seemingly the fall of pro-hero society. And that's pretty much all the information we're getting here. We don't know why she suddenly had this 180, or maybe she was always kind of like that. I'm assuming that she was probably like a really good, morally just hero for the most part, and then one day she saw something or experienced something that made her like snap or something. I mean, there's a few manga villains that have that backstory to them. So then All For One sees Overhaul with her, and he says, "The young boss of the 8 precepts of death, is he a friend of yours?" She's like, "No, he's a broken man, but I thought he could be useful later on. He is another victim of the evil pro-hero society." So I talked about this in the spoilers for this chapter, but like, does she know like what Overhaul has done? I mean, like, like the really bad stuff. I'm assuming that she doesn't, or if she does, maybe she still wouldn't care. Not really sure. But if anybody is not a victim, it's definitely Overhaul. Then coming to the end of the chapter, we see All For One like about to put his hand on her head, and he says, "To put an end to these darn heroes, come on now, let's make a deal. Consider this a security deposit." And then in the last panel, we see Lady Nagant like floating, and it says quirk airwalk. So yeah, this means that All For One gave Lady Nagant his airwalk quirk. We saw him use this in the Camino arc, so understandable that he has this ability to give, but how is she able to receive another quirk here on top of the inherent rifle quirk that she already has? I'm honestly not really sure, because as far as I know, it's been established at this point that your brain can't handle having multiple quirks. That's why they had to augment the Nomus the way that they did. Now, there are some outliers to this, like, with One For All's formation. Obviously, Yoichi inherently had that quirk that could pass itself on to others, and seemingly All For One didn't know that, so then he gave him the Power Stockpiler quirk, and then in that special circumstance, those two quirks fused together and made One For All. But I think this might be the second instance, outside of One For All being passed on to the other people who've had it, that someone else has just straight up received an extra quirk here from All For One, without them being like a Nomu or having some kind of augmentation to them. Now, either All For One did something special to allow this to happen, or maybe this was always the case, that he could always just give somebody an extra quirk or something, but maybe one is like the most, or maybe because she's so powerful, she can somehow handle having 2 quirks. Or this is ultimately going to be detrimental for her. Like, maybe she's on borrowed time here because she does have 2 quirks, and maybe her brain will eventually rot or something. Or it'll just be detrimental to her in some way. Because even the 4th user discovered that like him having One For All on top of his original quirk, Danger Sense, like aged him twice as fast or something. And I also think that Nomu's being brought up in the beginning of this chapter probably has something to do with what's going on here at the end, maybe. Like I said, not really sure, but I don't think it's just going to be, fine for her with this. I mean, I do think there's going to be some kind of price to pay. I mean, think about it. Why didn't he just give the League of Villains all multiple quirks if this was just like such a normal thing, But yeah, that's pretty much it for the video today, guys. Let me know what you think about this chapter in the comments. What do you think's going on with Lady Nagant's multiple quirks? What do you think is going to happen with Deku in the next chapter? Let me know. And if you liked the video, guys, please give it a like, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.